zero electrification, efficiency electrification and on-site solar. My name is Craig Altimos. I'm here on behalf of Greener U. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here, and I'm co-hosting this webinar with Sana. Sana, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Excited to be here. My name's Sana. I'm the Community Partnerships Manager at Resonant. I'll be speaking a little bit more to our work and the on-site solar portion. Yeah, and open to any questions as we go along. So feel free to drop those in the chat as we go.
And we'll also be joined by Mara Tu from Alston Brighton CDC and Mark Lensley from Wellesley Village Church, and we'll have them introduce themselves in a little bit to give folks a taste of the flow of the webinar today. We're going to have the welcome, which is happening right now. Then we'll hear just a tiny bit about Greener U, and then turn over to Mark to talk about the Wellesley Village Church case study, which really focused on the geothermal heating that they've done. And then we'll hear a little bit about Resonant Energy, and then Mara will tell us about the work that Resonant has done at Alston Brighton CDC, along with the Hanover Homes in particular, along with a little bit more of their decarbonization work. And then we'll have some opportunities for next steps, and then have a Q&A for everyone. So, got more. But to share who is in the room for those of you who answered, thank you very much. Looks like we have good number of folks from higher education, some folks from affordable housing, some folks from houses of worship, government, K-12. So pretty good other nonprofits. And it looks like a lot of folks have done rooftop solar already. A good number of folks have done air source heat pumps. A small number have done ground source heat pumps, and almost everyone has done lighting, which is not surprising. It's a good first step. Controls, a lot of envelope work, again, really important first step, and some other efficiency work. So it seems like we've got some action takers in the house, which is always wonderful to see. But there's almost always more we can do. So it's great folks are here to learn more and see what other opportunities might be in front of us. So thank you all for filling that out. So just to share a little bit, actually, before we get into Greener U, Sana is actually talking about Greener U and Resonance Partnership.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Yeah, just wanted to introduce our partnership before we get into the details of our individual work and some of the projects that we've done. Greener U and Resonant have been working together for the last year to help bring the benefits of solar, energy efficiency, electrification to more organizations in Massachusetts, recognizing that, organizations become more resilient when each of these initiatives is combined. Sounds like some of you all have done at least one of them. So maybe you're eager to hear about how to work the other initiatives into your process. We both provide deep expertise and wraparound services in our respective offerings and have a shared focus on serving nonprofits, which is what initially drew us together. And our hope is that through this partnership, we can help organizations meet their decarbonization goals, whether that's to become more environmentally resilient, more cost-effective to operate, or to comply with emissions reductions ordinances or those are passed. And we often find that it's a combination of all three. So here to help with whatever your goals might be. And with that, I'll pass it back to Craig to dive into Greener U's work.
Thank you, Sana. So Greener U is a Massachusetts-based mission-driven company that focuses on helping institutions decarbonize. So we have kind of three core teams as part of our company. We have a planning team, we have an engineering team, and we have a construction management team. So we help with everything from climate action plans to much more focused building decarbonization assessments that are more technical. The climate action plans can be a little bit more high level. And then we have an engineering team that designs specific engineering solutions for projects. And then we have a construction management team that implements and installs and constructs those projects for our customers. This is a sampling of some of our past and present customers. You'll see a lot of universities are up there. The U in Greener U does stand for university. But a while back, we realized that the same types of buildings that exist on campus also exist off campus. And so we've since broadened our focus to serve a wide variety of nonprofits, from houses of worship to museums to cultural institutions to private K-12 schools, and cultural institutions, community centers, and then also have some government clients as well. And we have a smattering of private sector clients, but we really found that nonprofits that have that long-term view of ownership, that really want to invest in their facilities and really care about their impact on the broader world, have been our best customers to date. And you'll hear from one of them very shortly. Um, but again, just to give a sampling of some of our services. So on the kind of more on the services side, we do BERDO and BETO reporting, also LBER reporting for folks. Again, we create climate action plans. We can do building or portfolio-wide decarbonization assessments, feasibility and design studies. And then we do design build, which again, inclusive of construction, and we can manage both projects and programs for folks. And then in terms of the actual technologies, we do HVAC renewal, heat recovery, both air source and ground source heat pumps, EV charger installations, lighting, and control work, among others. Also building envelope and a number of things, I'm sure. And just one particular other project we wanted to highlight, that's one that recently won an award that we're very proud of, is work with Roxbury Tenants of Harvard, which was awarded the first Building Intervention Award from the BE Plus at their Building Technology Forum, I think it was last fall. But this is an example of a custom solution we designed. It's a heat recovery project in Levinson Tower, which is projected to create $132,000 of cost savings. Basically, it's capturing all of the exhaust heat from the exhaust fans from the bathrooms and the kitchen fans from the different apartments in this complex that all exhaust through a single channel in the center of the building, and we're capturing some of the heat and bringing it back down into the basement to reduce the amount of natural gas that has to be burned for both this property and some other nearby properties that they own. And we also helped this customer win a $150,000 grant from the City of Boston's Equitable Missions Investment Fund. So again, just kind of a different approach that we're about to hear from Mark, where we've done a much more deep whole hog changeover of their heating system, but we also do more targeted interventions where we kept the gas system intact but made the building more efficient for them in the meantime. But then when it becomes hopefully an air source or ground source heat pump project, heated building later on, that intervention will still be useful for them as they do that work. But I'm now very pleased to turn over the floor to Mark Lency, who is the co-chair of the Wellesley Village Church Geothermal Project, and someone we've been really delighted to work with on this project for the past year and a couple of years now at this point. But Mark, please take it away.
Thanks, Greg. In the interest of time, we're just going to rock and roll here, and I assume any questions will go in via the chat, correct? Okay.
Yeah, I think just a note on that. People, please do put your questions in the chat as they arise. We'll probably do all the questions at the end, but it'd be great if people can put those in as the presentations go on.
Okay. So I'm not going to repeat what's in the slides. I'm counting on you all to read it, and let me highlight what your important takeaways from this should be. And first one is this was not a quick decision or short-term snap project. We're 11 years from when our church committed formally to environmental stewardship as one of our primary values of the church. And we did a bunch of steps along the way to prepare for what we knew was coming, which was the conversion of our HVAC system, that it was reaching into useful life. For you all nonprofits out there, or particularly people who have to make community decisions where 300 people all agree, any one of which can veto it, takes a while to get there, and you got to do a lot of due diligence to get everybody on board. And then the second major point is, in order to get our congregation to make the step to geothermal, we knew we wanted to do that. We had pretty much ruled it out by 2022 because it was about 30% more expensive. The big change was the Inflation Reduction Act, which first of all allowed nonprofits to take tax credits and get them as direct payments because we had no taxes to credit against. So, and then second, to give 40% of the total project cost back as a direct payment to the church, which was huge, of course. And in fact, in our case, that's $1.8 million check we're looking for the federal government to give us this year, on top of the Mass Save, which was another $680,000. That resulted in this. I'll save the punchline here for a couple more slides of what it came out to. But in order to get to that, in addition to having the costs equal that, we found that was not sufficient to move a congregation towards geothermal. Geothermal is still viewed by the average person as something iffy, rocket science, not untested, rather than something that's a refrigeration cycle that's been around for 150 years. So the other element we needed was fixed price proposal, and here's where Greener U shined. We found we needed to invest another $120,000 on top of the $50,000 we'd already spent on preliminary geothermal design in order to eliminate, to get the engineering down to the point that all the subs and Greener U felt they could bid a fixed price contract, which they did, and which we hit. We did not overrun that. So that was huge thing in getting the congregation to do it. And one of the best decisions second best decision we made was to go for the fixed price, invest the money up front, go for fixed price. And that enabled us to get the last group of people over the hurdle and vote for it. So now before I go to that got us to 2023, which was where now we had enough information to go to congregation. So let me go to the next slides and tell you a little bit about what we went to our congregation with and how they voted. Next slide, please. This is just a quick rundown on what we have. We have a 55,000 square foot, 100-year-old brick building that was heavily expanded and modified in 2000. So everything was about, the HVAC was about 30 years old, 2 oil-fired boilers that had been converted from Lord knows what, they powered the Titanic. And half the heat was delivered by baseboard hot water, half by air. There was no ability to modify the building to put bigger air ducts in so that we could go to a solution that was simply forced hot air or cooling. So it had to be this hybrid of baseboard radiators and forced hot air. It also expanded the scope of what we had to air condition all the rooms. Next slide. So what we went to the congregation with, and this is gold. You won't find, we have not found anybody that you could go to and say, for your building, did you evaluate all the different types of HVAC conversion costs? What were they? How did they come out? What did you decide on? And did you actually hit that? You can't find that data. So this piece of information here is gold. And here's the net of it. It's a wash. It's a wash. Air source heat pump, ground source heat pump, oil, natural gas, it all equal with these incentives of the Inflation Reduction Act. It's a wash. That piece of information you proven with an actual finished project where we actually did it. That you're not going to find anywhere else but from us, and we're very proud to be in the lead of that. I think the key elements you want to look at there is how much the Inflation Reduction Act and the Mass Save rebates brought us back. You're talking $1.9 million almost of federal rebates and almost 700,000 of Mass Save. These huge chunks of change. Now you have to bridge the gap till you finish the project and get this stuff. So you do need a bridging finance, but in the end, it's a wash. So that's the big takeaway here. Next slide. So we went to the congregation with this. We estimated the total cost of ownership to be this, which looks like that's the case. And with geothermal, 2 takeaways. One, the longer you look out for your total cost of ownership, the more advantageous geothermal is for bunches of reasons. One of which is it's going to last a lot longer than any other HVAC system. You don't have all your electronics and compressors and everything outside in the environment. You got them inside the building. You got a well field good for 100 years and so forth. The other thing about this slide is we overestimated the geothermal utility costs. We're only 3 months into operating it, but already we realized we overestimated how much electricity we're going to use. We're actually using less electricity by about 30% than we estimated for geothermal. So it's actually better than what this slide says in the practice. At least ask me after one full year of operating, but right now that's how it looks. Next slide. The emissions, the only reason we don't say it's net zero, it is net zero on the site. But since we're using electricity from the grid, which is not all green, we have that up there. But on site, we're net zero, obviously. Next slide. And then just for the nonprofits that have to raise the money, we went about it like most people did. In the middle there, you see is modernize the HVAC system. Was about a $3 million bill, and we raised another $1 million on top of it for a bunch of other things our church was doing. Typical. And next slide. So that then enabled us to go to congregation with this. We got the estimates. We ruled out oil because we didn't want to do it, and it wasn't going to. We thought that was going to something simple like, well, we were promised drop-in boiler replacement, drop-in natural gas replacement, drop-in air source heat pumps. Anybody says the word drop-in to you, just tell them goodbye. When you actually get down to it, there's a ton of engineering involved in and integration required to refit a big building like this, and nothing's drop-in. And that actually made what we learned. It's not just the cost of the boiler, it's a whole lot more in it, such that it came out the same cost as geothermal. Air source heat pumps lost out. First, they ended up pretty expensive. Second, they were massive, 12 to 15 feet high, and our roof structure couldn't physically support these, nor did we have the ground footprint to put them. So if you're going to try air source heat pumps for something our size, you better have a lot of real estate that people let, and we're a building that's Wellesley will not let us change the appearance of our historic building, so we couldn't stick these things up or put them out under, we didn't even put them on the ground, nor did we want to. So that's why air source heat pumps quickly dropped out, and we came down to just the choice between natural gas and geothermal. It took us weekly meetings and engagement with the congregation for almost 3 months before we got to a vote of 85% of the congregation going for geothermal. And we sunk our first well in December of 2024. No, 5. Right, we're in 2026. No, 2024.
2024,
Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, next slide. So here's some thoughts for you on the decision process. It's a journey, okay? And if you're gonna have to get a lot of people to vote for it, you're gonna have to invest a lot of time to understand their concerns. It cost us $150,000 to get the geothermal, so it was fixed price. Great decision. But the project costs are going to go up during the time it takes you to make this decision. If we'd have been able to make a decision and said, hey, we can go, we just want greener U and go, we'd have saved 10% of the total cost of the project, but that's not a decision a church can make. We had to get competitive bids to satisfy our congregation. Greener U was the only general contractor that bid all options. We had people that bid various other ones. Greener U is the only one that gave us all options, which was good because then you get one contractor and you could bounce Greener U's natural gas against somebody else's natural gas and see if something's off. Very, very helpful there. The IRA, again, so that is how we got to where we are. that's the first half of this. The second half is a real quick look of what it is now that it's built. So do you want me to pause for any questions or should I just keep rolling through here?
I think we're going to probably take questions at the end of all of the presentations, Mark. So I'd say, if you just want
Okay.
to charge ahead, that'd be
So
great.
real quick, what it took for us, 18 wells, 850 feet deep. To put that in perspective, what that is 6 miles of underground piping here. This is a lot of drilling into bedrock. The equivalent of going from our city, center of our city, to the center of the next city with a 6-inch bore, 6 miles. Um, and it's about 30% of the project cost and about 40% of the time of the construction is the drilling. To do this, by the way, we have 2 church buildings. We shut down this one. This is our primary one. And we had merged with a smaller church. We shifted all our operations to another church building. That saved us money and time because we could readily shut the building down. We didn't have to worry about scheduling around it. People, we didn't have to have the safety stuff in there you need if civilians were in it. So good decision, but not everybody's in that position. Next slide. Uh, this is for those of you that real quick geothermal primer. This is the heating mode. You can see the well fields on the left. That's where we're pulling uh, cold water out of the ground, heating it up with heat pumps, and then that hot water then goes to our air handling units on the roof, 2 of them, which deliver warm air to our building and to our baseboard, existing baseboard radiators that deliver warm air by that mode. Next slide. This is the cooling mode. And the surprise here is you'll notice the heat pumps aren't used. We're just pulling the cold water out of the ground or sending it right to the roof at 48 degrees, which is cooler than usually you would send cooling water to air conditioning units. So here's where we made the error in calculating our costs. When the heat pumps aren't used, air conditioning is far and away our cheapest mode. It's all we're running is some pumps from the well and fans. So we can air condition till the cows come home at very, very low cost. So that's that story. Next slide. There's a mixed mode. This is where the north side of our building in the spring is cold because it's facing north, and the rooms on the south side of the building are sweltering because you have the low angle sun coming in. And what this does is much of the heat that's removed from those hot rooms simply goes around and heats the cold rooms. I mean, there's no use sending that water back down the ground, cooling it and heating it back up again, right? So we actually move heat in these 2 modes, spring and fall, between one side of the building and the other. Another very cost-effective way. The other thing is the heat pumps, compared to air source heat pumps, can be designed to operate in a 10-degree temperature range. So you can build a much more efficient heat pump than you can for an air source heat pump that's got to go between -10 and 100 degrees outside air temperature. All this adds up to these efficiencies in geothermal that we didn't have a way of putting any numerical values to, which we were just guessing when we went into this, but it's turning out really efficient. Okay, next slide. Integrated design. This is a modern building management system. For those of you that haven't heard it, seen one, this is the air side of it. Shows on the left the return air coming from our building mixing with outside air, so it's fresh. Then in the middle center, you'll see the red heating tubes. This is in the heating. This is an actual screenshot. It's in the heating mode, and you can, if you follow it up around, you can see zone damper number 2 is at 83% because that space is calling for heat. And we can monitor this, graph it, get alarms on it. We learned so much more about running our building than we did with our old system. In fact, that's one of the lessons learned. I'll tell you about it at the end. Next slide. Next slide. This is the heat pumps. So you saw what was going on the roof. Here's what gets the heat to the or cooling to the roof. From the left-hand side is the cold water coming out of the ground, going to the heat pumps or bypassing them in the air conditioning mode. And on the right, the hot or cold water goes to the air handling units, depending if you're heating or cooling, or hot water in the heating mode, also going to the heat baseboard radiators. And you can see all the parameters. And this is just a key parameters. You can, by clicking down, you can drill in on all of this stuff and see what's going on. So you learn a lot. If you go to the next slide, uh, that's what our first floor looks like. And we have one of these for all 3 floors. Here's where the rubber meets the road, is from home or anywhere we are, we can see what's going on in all of our rooms on temperature. And this is what has led us to modifying grooming almost 2 months of work once we got the system going. Now that we have this modern control system, to get all these rooms to heat up and cool down at according to our calendar schedule, adjusting how much we set it back in the evenings to how much we heat it up versus outside temperature, and learning. The system actually learns as you go, and you edit it and you find out, gee, I got a radiator that isn't working. I got a ventilation pipe that's plugged up. And so that's what we've been doing for 2 months, thanks to all the knowledge that this new building management system allows us to do. And overall ending up with also not only a geothermal system, but an HVAC system that actually really works as it should. And we can watch daily that it's working as we expect. Let's see, last slide. I added this one based on these first 3 months of operation. We did allow for, and Greener, you allowed for an allowance. Good thing we did in that fixed price contract, because when we took the old rooftop units off, we discovered that we didn't know that our roof had been leaking and needed major repair section. And it was within the allowances that we had allowed for. The investing that I mentioned already, the fixed price contract and the design work that did it was invaluable to us in peace of mind and getting the congregation to do it. Then there's this whole paragraph on retrofitting. It's taken us over 3 months to shake out all the issues with the legacy equipment, not the new stuff we put in. Problems we had that we weren't aware of because we didn't have a building management system capable of detecting radiator valves that didn't open, thermostats that didn't work, air valves that didn't go, room temperatures that were out. It was all random green screens, us going around looking at thermometers. You couldn't coherently look at where problems were. So this is a unexpected work, unexpected bonus out of it. And I put this presentation was not sent through Greener U. This is a present. We are getting at least 2 requests a week from other churches and nonprofits to tell them about our project. You're seeing the presentation we send out to everybody. So that last bullet about Greener U was I said fixed price contract and the investment up front was the second best decision. The first best decision was Greener U, and I'll tell you that flat out. I've had a lot of experience. I was captain of a nuclear submarine. I know how to do very highly technical maintenance. I worked for Microsoft. I understand software. I've seen big contracts. Microsoft's the smallest company I ever worked for, kind of put in my life. So I do big, I do scale. I understand major projects and what it takes. Let me tell you, we could not have had a better relationship from the get-go with Greener U. Before we ever awarded a dime to them, Greener U helped us sell this project, explain it, answer questions, everything we needed to do this. Carried it through us, stuck and is sticking by us to get through the last of the shakeout. And they reacted to go story after story about unforeseen things that we came up with, that they were there. Because the CEO was in one Sunday morning mopping up water that came in through an open construction hatch in the rain before church service. They do what it takes. So big kudos to Greener U. Recommend them to any nonprofit. that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. There's some pictures. If you
Oh,
have never seen 18 wells, by the way, being drilled, it's like a oil field in Texas when it goes down. There were some pictures back there, what it's like. And you go our church website, you get a week by week video of this whole construction project of everything that's in all these pictures. We have videos of how we did every step of it all along the way, if you're interested in that sort of thing.
well, thank you so much, Mark. And we're going to turn over to Sana now from Resonant to do the second half of this.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, that looked like a great project. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about on-site solar. I'll introduce Resonant and the work we do, and then I'll pass it over to Mara Tu from Alston Brighton Community Development Corporation to talk about a project we did with them to install solar on-site alongside various other energy efficiency projects. So yeah. Who is Resident Energy? Resonant was founded in 2016 with a mission to expand access to clean energy. And today we do that primarily by helping nonprofit organizations and affordable housing developers go solar and take advantage of the available financing and funding opportunities that can otherwise feel difficult to pursue. We have a team dedicated to helping our clients apply for state and federal incentives. Mark mentioned these. I'll talk in a little bit more detail about those later on, as well as grant opportunities. And consider that to be sort of one of our specialty wraparound services. Our office is based in Boston. Most of our projects are in Massachusetts. We've recently expanded into a few other states in the Northeast, and are B Corp certified and employee owned. Next slide. Thanks. So we have installed nearly 400 projects to date, totaling 14 megawatts across Massachusetts. Here are just a few that you might be familiar with in the area that capture our work across K through 12 schools, houses of worship, museums, affordable housing. We've mostly done rooftop arrays, like you can see here. But we're increasingly doing parking canopy arrays like the one pictured at the Discovery Museum, especially as incentives for those have gotten stronger. And I'd say we've as an organization really carved out a niche and sort of specific expertise in building projects at this scale, anywhere from 25 kilowatts to just over a megawatt. Unlike other developers that focus on sort of single family home residential installs or developers that focus on much larger utility scale projects that you see alongside the highway or across rural farmlands, we've really developed an expertise in building small to medium commercial projects across the built environment. Next slide. We are a full service solar installer, so that means we handle everything from design and financing to installation and post-installation monitoring. We'll start early on with a desktop analysis of your building or portfolio that includes a preliminary design, a detailed cash flow. For that, all we'll need is electric bills, and then we'll typically present two different options for solar, a no-cost option, a direct purchase option. And then once you're committed to working with us, we'll come on site and most importantly, we'll start locking in any project incentives. There are lots of solar grants and incentives available right now that are some of which are time sensitive, some of which require applications. Our team really stays on top of all of that for you very early on in the process so that we can ensure you're capturing them once the project gets built. And then once those are locked in, we finalized the designs, we've required permits, we'll begin construction, and post-installation, you can opt into our operations and monitoring service so that you don't have to worry about navigating or catching any issues once your solar system is on and producing energy. And just on the next slide, I'll quickly talk about what some of the current incentives are, including an update on the investment tax credit that Mark alluded to. These are all sort of overlapping right now in what we're calling an incentive sweet spot between now and July. We have solar feasibility and installation grants available for nonprofits specifically that are funded by different state organizations, Mass CEC and the Department of Energy Resources. Those are both available through July and in some cases can cover up to 100% of project costs. And then the federal tax credit, which is worth 30 to 50% of total project costs, is phasing out at the end of 2027, but there's an opportunity to lock it in for 4 years for any project that safe harbors it by July of this year. Then you'll have until 2030 to actually build the project as opposed to just the end of 2027. And as Mark said, nonprofits can receive this tax credit as a cash reimbursement from the IRS. And then lastly, the state incentive program called SMART provides monthly cash payments to solar owners over the course of 20 years. A new version of this program called SMART 3 has just launched with higher incentives, and that current tier is available through the end of the year. Nonprofits are eligible for all of these, so we can help you stack them and lock them in by their deadlines. You don't actually need to start construction to do so. And it's not to say that, solar won't make financial sense after some of these are phased out, but just wanted to highlight the uniqueness of the opportunity, the moment that we're in right now. And on the next slide, just a quick case study. The reason why I say this is unique is because we've had clients successfully capture all of these incentives and get 100% of installation costs covered. This is a client we worked with last year to install a solar system nonprofit in Randolph, Massachusetts. They captured all the incentives I talked about on the last slide and got 100% of their installation costs covered. So at essentially no cost to them, they will be offsetting all their electricity usage and then capturing the additional revenue that the SMART program provides. And over the solar system's lifetime will save $3 million in operating expenses. So with that, I will pass it over to Mara to dive into the details of how Hano Homes installed solar and thought about this work. Thanks,
Hi,
Mara.
everyone. Yeah, thanks so much. My name is Mara too. I'm a real estate project manager here at the Austin Britton CDC. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit more about the Hano Homes deep energy retrofit that we had completed in Allston, Massachusetts. So a little bit about Allston Britton CDC. We're a nonprofit organization currently focused on affordable housing development, educating first-time home buyers, building family economic self-sufficiency, and fostering community cohesion at the Allston Britton neighborhoods of Boston. And why we're doing everything? Well, with the support of our senior team and board of directors, we set a goal to decarbonize all 553 units across the 12 properties we have by 2040. And we're hoping that by setting a goal ahead of the city and state's 2050 target, we can kind of demonstrate urgency and our commitment to this plan. In general, the path to full decarbonization has and will continue to take years of preparation and planning, aligning ourselves with strong partners and leading into the emission regulations from the city, and also chasing some funding opportunities. So Hano Homes itself, while the building is not very old, the building is quite old, dating back to the late 19th century. It's not on the historic register, and so any historically significant architectural details were moved long ago. So fortunately for us, the rehab was much more straightforward and less constrained. And with the last rehab happening on site about in 2003, it was long overdue for refinancing and a full rehab. All major systems were approaching the end of useful life. There was a weak envelope. And so it was in need of residing, insulation, new windows, and a new roof. And all of these conditions made for the 20 units at Hano Homes to be a great candidate for a deep energy retrofit. And I'm really excited and happy to share that all exterior and interior building system work was completed last May, after 11 months. And right now we're just waiting on solar. So excitingly, solar was installed 2 weeks ago, and we're just waiting for the final solar inspections and a certificate of completion to fully wrap up this project. Yeah, so I know this webinar is called the Trio of Net Zero, but actually with this project, there were kind of four major elements. So we had the envelope, full building electrification, fresh air ventilation, and then finally the rooftop solar to kind of wrap everything together. The most critical piece of building electrification is creating a super insulated envelope. So this included demoing down the siding to the original sheathing, adding entirely new winter coat, as our architects like to call it, installing carbon storing wood fiber insulation, adding Passive House certified windows and doors, and putting on an entirely new EPDM roof to prepare for the solar. And we removed all fossil fuel on site and fully electrified the heating and cooling system as well as the domestic hot water. And because the building was fully air sealed with airtight envelope, we also installed energy recovery ventilator systems to provide filtered 24/7 fresh air ventilation. Next slide. Great. And then what we came to talk about today. So the goal of solar was a huge and key component to ABCDC's overall decarbonization strategy on site. At Hano specifically, having on-site solar was necessary to offset all of the energy upgrades and larger energy and electrical uses on site to get the building as close to net zero as possible. And similar to Mark mentioning, this was a long process, the DER component, but also the solar component. So the path to solar for Hano Homes began all the way back in 2002 when ABCDC participated in one of the first cohorts of the Solar Technical Assistance Retrofit Program, or STAR program, which was a collaboration between LISC Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Association of Community Development Corporations, and Resonant Energy, which was a program that was basically to provide nonprofit affordable housing organizations a full portfolio analysis for solar installation. And from there, we were able to identify Hano Homes as a great and ideal candidate with its large flat roofs. And we dug deeper with Resonant to the projected financials and financing options, and then also kind of moving forward with design changes. And since we knew we wanted to complete the DER scope for the project, we also aligned that with the solar installation to make sure there was close coordination. And so during construction, there was a lot of back and forth and clear communication between our general contractors and the Resonant Energy team to make sure that things like meter blocking, the cut of stub outs, locations, and roof coordination was all set so that the GC team could prep the entire building and kind of give a smooth transfer straight to the solar installation team. Since for this project specifically, solar was the final step. And thanks to biweekly and kind of consistent coordination between Resonant and us, the final design that we have right now has 13 panels on each roof, generating over 73,000 kilowatt hours per year. And while the upfront cost was a little over $318,000, we're looking at a lifetime saving of over $600,000 thanks to many of the public incentive programs and financial return opportunities that Resonant has really helped us tap into and helped us kind of make decisions through. So yeah, very exciting to see this as the final step at Hano Homes. And just some more project scope items, I guess, on the people side of things for Hano Homes. If you all are curious a little bit more about this side of things, there are 49 residents who live at Hano Homes, most of which are considered low to moderate income with an average annual income of $32,000. And so kind of by providing these much needed renovations at the property, the CDC was able to connect some of these great COMET funding opportunities, as well as the solar installation out there in Boston and Massachusetts to directly benefit the residents. Post-project, ABCDC has fully committed to owner-paid utilities. Residents have control over the heating and cooling of their units for the first time. The units provide high thermal comfort and moisture control thanks to electric heat pump technology. There's fresh air ventilation to filter air pollutants, which is especially relevant because of the building's location next to the Mass Pike, the MBTA commuter rail. And insulation has provided some really serious and great noise pollution control as well. So because this is also home for our residents. There is a relocation component. It was very complex, but there was great coordination with our team. So we were able to work out a smooth strategy that moved like clockwork once we got the hang of it. So initially the project planned for offsite relocation, but two vacancies opened up. And so we were able to hold them as hotel units for our residents. And so our contractor just needed 2 weeks inside of the units to fully complete all interior work. They were very, very effective. And in that time, residents were relocated to the temporary on-site relocation units, 2 units at a time for 2 weeks. And for that process, we had the help of the Judy Phone relocation, housing and relocation consultants to just make sure that all resident needs were met. And that team fully handled the logistics of moving, clearing out the units, resident storage, and furnishing our hotel units. And yeah, once tenants moved back in, there was a little bit of a learning curve to use these new heating and cooling systems. And residents were also very curious about the solar as well. And so we were able to set up some one-on-one meetings with them to walk through kind of how to use these updated thermostats and a little bit more of a broader recap on what the project was. But we're still continuing to refine and work on resident engagement, feedback, and general education about deep energy retrofits and the decarbonization of our buildings. Thanks. And so the DER costs kind of represented 80% of the total hard cost for the project, since most of the scope was DER related with very minimal interior upgrades. Most of the sources for the Hano Homes project were specifically from grants that were focused on energy efficiency and performance-based sources. And so, yeah, we're very lucky here in Boston, Massachusetts for the funding and political landscape that goes towards building electrification. So a good portion of that was from green sources and financing. So Hano Home specifically was among the first awarded and completed projects of some of these funding sources. And I'm kind of pretty envious of the IRA funding that Mark was able to tap into for the Wellesley Village Church, because our IRA funding that we were expecting for this project was clawed back mid project. And so kind of during the project, we had to pivot over and reach out and apply to new funding sources. Next slide. Yeah, and in general, I know I tried to lay out the Hano path to decarbonization in a linear way here, but in general, with any project, the path to decarbonization will look different project to project and really is not a linear path. But there's some really great resources for project road mapping, not just for individual buildings, but also for whole portfolio decarbonization. And some great resources are Greener You, and also great people to help you out, like Resident Energy. And I also wanted to list RMI, Enterprise Green Communities, and then also the Mass Clean Energy Center and Lisk, Massachusetts. All are great, great resources in this area. But yeah, kind of as a result of this deep energy retrofit, the project reduction of operating carbon emissions was targeted to be 74%, and an energy use intensity reduction of 81%. And right now, we're kind of looking at current data, since it's been a couple months since the project wrapped up. We're kind of right a little bit below, but right on target for many of these goals. And then with solar installed, we're very excited to see what those savings continue to look like. Yeah, and we couldn't have done it without this awesome project team. And thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll send it back to Sana for questions and other things.
Great. Thanks, Mara. It was great to hear a little bit more about the details of that project, because I'm only familiar with the solar side. So yeah, we hope that you are feeling inspired to think about your own buildings, your own organization's decarbonization journey. And if you are, we have a short form that you can fill out to get in touch with either of us. You can scan the QR code. I'll also drop it in the chat. And then I think we'd just like to leave the remaining 7 or so minutes for open discussion and Q&A. Feel free to ask questions to either Craig or myself, or if you have specific questions about the projects that Mark and Mara talked about, I'm sure they'd also be willing to chime in.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions in the chat already. So we'll just kind of take these. Elise asked, without the rebates, what would Wellesley Village Church have done? So I think that's to Mark.
I'm pretty sure we would have gone natural gas without the rebates. In fact, I'm sure we would have. We needed to replace the HVAC system, but the congregation wasn't ready to spend another $1.5 million to do geothermal.
And I think this is also for Mark. Two questions from Peter. Did you have any outside organizations, e.g., consultants, nonprofits, helping make the decision? And did you make anything to make your system able to connect to a thermal energy network in the future?
The first question, we did not have any external advisors other than on the capital campaign, which had nothing, that thing. Everything else we did with Greener U and our own internal resources. And then we floated, if our church sits on a street directly across from seven connected smaller stores, all owned by a single owner. And we floated the idea by the city and by this owner to put those wells you saw in our driveway down the middle of the street and be able to tap off whenever those buildings needed to convert their HVAC system. The wells would already be in place and they could drop in a geothermal heat pump. We just ran out of runway. We needed to get going because we were concerned about the Trump administration hadn't been inaugurated yet. When we dropped that first well in December, we needed to get going because we wanted to clearly demonstrate substantial progress on the project in 2024 in the case that the rebates were canceled. They weren't. They're still good through 3032. So we just ran out of time to try and get that, but it would have been a great idea. And the city of Wells to bring in other owners all into a project. And the city of Wellesley, in fact, has taken this, and we've just had an opportunity where a large block of buildings was bought by a single owner, and they're talking seriously about doing that, stores and office, all with wells under a common parking lot. It makes a huge amount of sense. Once you're dropping wells, it just takes a few more, and you get throw on another building.
Just want to underline one thing Mark said about the IRA rebates. So Mara talked about how they've been clawed back, and Mark is saying how they're not. And just want to be clear that there's a bunch of different rebates to the IRA created in tax credits and so on. Some of them have been clawed back, but which Mara spoke to. Sano was talking about other tax credits that are in the process of being canceled, but if you safe harbor them by putting a deposit down by July 4th of this year, you can capture the solar tax credits for the next 4 years. You can safe harbor those. And then what Mark was talking about are the geothermal tax credits, and those are still good through 2032. That was actually one small part of the IRA that was left untouched by the Trump administration's repeal. So I just want to clarify that in case folks were confused about the different moving pieces there.
And actually, it affects us both ways. I mentioned we have a second church building where we just let the contractor put an array on that church roof that will actually share the power between the church building, and a home we have in the same city with a single array on the church, and it'll 100% of the electrical needs of those two buildings by solar. We wanted to get it started so we could take advantage of these 40% rebates again. That was part of what we had intended to do this. We raised that additional money as part of our capital campaign for geothermal. So now we're proceeding.
Okay. So again, if there are more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I think there's one more here from Michael, which I think was a question to Greener U about some examples of the EOI improvements we've delivered in these projects. So both as found and upon project completion. And obviously, like every building is different, so there's not like a uniform answer we can give across our portfolio. We've tended to see double-digit EOI reductions after implementation. Deep energy retrofits, we've seen larger step changes. Um, the exact as found and post EOI again depends on the building type. But generally, we've seen a pretty consistent pattern that controls, commissioning, and lighting deliver fast, meaningful drops in EOI. HVAC plant and heat recovery and electrification deliver bigger step changes over time. But keep in mind that some building measures are adding comfort. So when you add, like a lot of places that add heat pumps didn't have cooling before. And so if you're adding cooling, that is increasing comfort for the residents and making it more livable as we enter a hotter climate zone with climate change. But that does impact the long-term EUI, but again, can increase the comfort and the building value. Any other questions from folks? I think we're about out of time here, but I've got one more minute if there's any other questions, and looks like not. So thank you all so very much for joining us today. Hope this was informative for everyone. And again, I think both we and Resident are eager to partner with folks if we can be helpful for you all. And I think Mara and Mark, I don't want to speak for them, but I'm sure they'd be delighted to present about their project and other forums if folks would like to hear more about their work.
Or anybody that's interested in the geothermal and how we did it, just pick up the phone and call us, and you can reach us through Green